Platinum Games, a decent video game developer slash gaming company that have many achievements under their belt, which includes the likes of Bayonetta. All it was really missing was the Shining Palace mode, considering that Devil May Cry's developer was also involved in that. Bayonetta 3 is going to be coming out. Nier Automata was fun. Lost Order, Lost Order, and Grand Blue Fantasy are in the works. Of course, they have Vanquish, which got mixed reception. Their Legend of Korra game, which of course didn't get the best reception. Transformers Devastation, which was decent, but could have been a lot better. Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, including Mad World, both of which are challenging in their own right, and fun as well, once you get behind it. Of course, there's the Wonderful 101, which I believe got good reception as well, but I never got a chance to play it. Then there's Infinity Space, which I also didn't play, and Anarchy Reigns, which I heard was disappointing. But they also have some dishonorable mentions under their belt, one of them which is the topic of this video. So, I was hoping to highlight that. This is their other dishonorable mention, which of course they made for Nintendo. Star Fox Zero. They really could have did a whole lot better with that. But that is a topic for another time. Now, one thing to know about Platinum Games is they were created after the dissolution of Clover Studios. Now, of course, Clover Studios, for those who don't know, are responsible for making such wonderful games as Beautiful Joe and its sequel, Beautiful Joe 2, including Okami. And of course, Okami got an HD remake last year, and I'm going to be doing a Let's Play styled review on it, so stay tuned for that. And okay, another thing to note is that when PG was created, two big players joined the fray and helped, spice up the games a bit. And that was Shinji Mikami of, you guessed it, Resident Evil 4 fame. And of course, Hideki Kamiya, the director and writer for the original Devil May Cry. Now, of course, with that in mind, Platinum Games was found to be a success, and they still in a sense are, despite having some blunders and such. They like to create original ideas with their works and try to balance their crazy ideas with the overall challenges and fun factor that factor into the whole equation that the consumers, we players basically, look at to decide for ourselves if they're for us or not. They have a great following. And of course, another thing to note is these people were going to develop, they were going to make Spellbound, but unfortunately, Microsoft fucking canceled it. This was developed exclusively for Xbox One. It should have been made, but no. But that's not the main thing, the main topic of this video. The main topic of this video is TMNT, Mutants in Manhattan, which one of my favorite YouTubers made a video on. It's part of a series called Your Opinion is Wrong, in which he covers that exact game. I wonder if he has any good arguments. Well, we're going to find out or not. I mean, of course, it's kind of rude to say, oh, your opinion's wrong, but whatever. It's obviously satirical, and I understand that. I mean, I'm satirical too, but whatever. Okay, Genry, you have a pretty good opinion on Dead Rising. You're a big fan of the series, and I love what you had to say about DR4. Now, let's see what you got to say about this particular game. Alright? I'm going to be responding to this, and of course, this video is made for the sole purpose of not just responding to this video, but to also give my own thoughts on the game as we go. Anyway, let's roll it.
Sorry, Earthlings, but all your base are belong to us. Knock it off, Mike.
Another thing to note is that this game is really bad at making humor. It's just bad at it.
The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles franchise is no stranger to video game adaptations. Since the mid-80s, everyone's favorite heroes in a half-shell have received video game installments, usually based on the current cartoon or movie. Their newest title, known as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutants in Manhattan, seems to be one of the few exceptions to that. Platinum Games, Japanese game company known for titles such as Bayonetta and Mad World, decided to approach the game and setting as a standalone title. They derive from the comic books more than anything else, as seen with particular character.
Yes, even though they failed at generating any good humor. Sorry, it's true. It's so bad that it makes me want to bash my head against the wall.
Science. In this episode of Your Opinion is Wrong, we will be reviewing this title. Regarding the gameplay, it seems that Platinum Games did not want to offer another brainless beat-em-up that required only the slightest sliver of strategy in order to complete it.
It's funny that he says, we are going to be reviewing it. Don't you mean you're going to be reviewing it? But since you included we, I guess that includes everyone else who has opinions on this as well. I mean, it's a good acknowledgement, but generally, usually what you say is, we're going to be taking a look at this and judging it on its own merits, or something like that. Basically, you usually want to say I. It kind of just sounds a little better, but whatever.
Nearly every single title before this. Don't get me wrong, I grew up playing the arcade titles, including the superior version of Turtles in Time on Super Nintendo, and have everlasting memories of cooperative fun.
That's a good game, I agree there.
A lot of those titles are absolutely fine for arcades. We've already seen what happens when the development team tries to take the arcade games people love and do nothing more but extend the campaign for a home console release. We receive a competent title, but one that ultimately feels very shallow and grows tiresome very quickly. Platinum Games used to primarily make original titles, but in recent history have heavily focused on existing IPs and licensed products, as we have already seen with Legend of Korra, Transformers Devastation, and Star Fox Zero. While these may be seen as shallow cash grabs, the least there is to appreciate is the turns they take for these franchises. Their Transformers title wasn't some run-of-the-mill third-person action game like other titles in the Transformers catalog, but
However, that one was a little bit stale when it came to the beat-em-up aspect, but it had some other cool stuff involved, such as weapon synthesis and special moves that you can do. But I get what you're saying.
instead a hack-and-slash combo-heavy entry that is faster paced than everything before it. Much like Star Fox Zero, which was not just another return of the lauded Star Fox 64 format like people probably expected. This distinction also defines why Mutants in Manhattan is not just another shallow arcade beat-em-up like people most likely expected. But then again, they already remade Turtles in Time in 2009, and we know how that turned out.
Yup, definitely. Really bad version.
With that, we dive into the gameplay. This game does not really play similar to previous titles in this franchise. Rather, it feels closer to Anarchy Reigns, a multiplayer-focused brawler by Platinum Games that launched a few years back. It takes mechanics that were never seen or focused on games before it, such as an inventory system, an item shop, experience points, aiming projectiles, special moves with cooldown, critical dodging or blocking, character enhancements you can equip and upgrade, recovering teammates when they're down or stunned, completing various types of missions, and combined team attacks.
Yes. However, they're mostly really muddled down by bad controls and the fact that your characters are really fucking slow to use those items. When a development company such as Platinum Games, which of course are known for making other great titles, should know better than to actually, underdevelop a game like this. But that's not my biggest gripe. Let's continue on.
One particular mechanic I really appreciated is the ability to extend your life bar throughout the stage. Whenever you gain battle points, which is through various means, you also gain towards another slice of health. Earning a new slice also replenishes your life bar to full capacity.
Another thing, this is about the combat, okay? When you're throwing, bladed objects at the rock guys or whatever, those rock enemies you face, it just bounces off them, but if you slice them or attack them, it apparently does a bit more damage, I believe. It's stupid. How does a blade bounce off it and yet the swords just, and your, supposed usual melee-styled weapons somehow actually do more damage than the throwing stars? It's just, having them do none is ridiculous. I'm sorry, man, but that part of it sucks.
This essentially encouraged you to play more aggressively and involve yourself in the fights as much as possible. Each turtle plays differently and have various combos to perform against the baddies,
which is fine, but like I said, it's still muddled by bad controls.
as well as dodge, block, and perform specials alone or with another turtle. Dodging and blocking also has a meter. Overuse of it, like with Platinum's previous titles, can be a very bad move because it leaves you completely open for enemies to attack.
Which is one of the problems with the game. Hell, there are other games that they made, such as Bayonetta, that handle that mechanic a whole lot better. Even when it comes to jumping, it fails miserably. I'm sorry. They really effed this up, man.
There is never a moment without all 4 turtles, even in single player. You can also switch between your fellow turtles at any time, helpful when you're low on health or down.
That's actually a good thing, but moving on.
There's a total of 9 stages. 7 of them offer an array of missions, which are different each time you play. They all vary from defeating enemy hordes, defending areas, disarming bombs, or transporting goods. Traveling throughout the stage is made convenient through the likes of grinding on rails and gliding with a small tarp.
Also, the dumb AI kind of ruins it. That's another factor to keep in mind about this. I know it's usually in a lot of games, but it doesn't really do any favors here. It's just bad. Especially when, Nier Automata and other games that they've made, I believe, it's mostly just Nier, that have actually utilized the AI a lot better. 9S is better than any of your teammates in this, so if you're going to be playing this, it's best to play it with a friend.
Once you and your team complete a number of missions, the boss's location is revealed. The boss fights, in my opinion, are the highlight of the game. When it came to older arcade titles, they ranged from pathetically easy to pretty much unfair, unless you knew particular exploits. Clearly, they made sure the boss fights for this title last a while and provide a hefty challenge. In fact, this portion of the game really feels like it was inspired by Monster Hunter, a game franchise notorious for its unrelenting bosses. After all, it is difficult to interrupt their attacks, they usually don't receive impact upon getting hurt. The concept of critical dodge, granting you a chance to ride on top of the boss and disrupting them for a period of time, is something similar to a mechanic introduced in Monster Hunter 4. The bosses can hit like trains, and of course random encounters of an extra boss during your main boss fight. Yeah, they really went all out for these fights, and it was a very delightful surprise.
Yes, however, Monster Hunter actually did that a lot better than this game did.
Albeit the anxiety that came with it. Online multiplayer is not too much different, besides the idea that players will most likely separate to cover more ground or find collectibles. Also during multiplayer you cannot switch between turtles even if you're not in a full 4-player party. So when you get downed and nobody recovers you, you get sent back to base to restore your health through this delicious pile of cheesy goodness. This is basically your respawn time. You can tap the button to regain health faster, but eating too quickly will cause you to burn yourself, causing your respawn to delay even further. If your entire team ends up at base at the same time, it's a game over and you have to restart the scenario. That is, if you have any continues left. The story itself is very by the books and nothing special. Evil forces led by Shredder and Krang are out to take over the world, and it's up to Leonardo, Donatello, Michelangelo, and Raphael to stop them. You would see the appearances of all expected villains, but I would have liked to see Platinum dive into the rest of the rogue gallery we do not see often enough, such as Rat King and Baxter Stockman.
Story aside, the gameplay is still pretty damn bad, especially since you can't upgrade, I repeat, you cannot upgrade the stats of any of the Ninja Turtles in this game. And the best way to actually be able to damage the opponents, aside from, of course, jumping on their back and such, you mostly just, how do I put it in the best way? Because this is going to sound really fucking stupid. The only way to truly do a lot of damage to the bosses and enemies around you, mostly, is to upgrade their special abilities. Do you realize how stupid that is? That's pretty dumb. It's basically kind of like saying Sonic can only kick Dr. Eggman's ass if he becomes Supersonic. That's dumb as shit. It's also like saying, oh, Mario can only defeat Bowser and the Koopa Kids if he gets a fucking star. I'm sorry. It's dumb. Special moves aren't the only way to cause damage in this game. So why the hell are you able to only do the bulk of damage, like most damage, just with special moves? I just think it's stupid. And of course, you get a lot of them. Of course, that doesn't really say much, considering that it's just stupid. I mean, why? Just why? It's one of the dumbest things to ever happen. It wasn't like that in TMNT 4. It wasn't like that at all, so why the hell is it like that here? That's dumb as hell. Hell, even in that non-canon fighting game they started, I believe it was what, Injustice 2. They kill enemy. They can defeat enemies by just melee attacking them and such. They don't have to just do special moves, so it's stupid, man.
The Turtles' personality also shine as much as one would expect, full of humor that's so bad it's great.
It's not so bad. It's great. Fuck you. No, I'm sorry, bro. Okay, I like your vids, but you're wrong here. No.
The music is also fitting to the chaos that ensues on the screen. The boss themes are especially entertaining tunes.
I disagree. There may have okay, there may be some bright spots in the game, but they're mostly pretty bad. The graphics of most of the environments are mostly not all that great either. It has a few bright spots even with the characters, and like the characters looking good and the bosses being the highlights and such, but most of the environments aren't even that well designed and such. Some enemies, of course, aren't that great either in terms of designs. And of course taking damage, but yeah.
Some complaints I have is that the timing windows for critical dodges can be very stingy. The fact that the game is locked at 30 frames per second definitely doesn't help that either.
Of course, that's a minor complaint when you consider the overall quality of the package.
Also, there's plenty of enemy attacks in which a critical dodge isn't possible to begin with, so you end up hurting yourself and getting yourself into even more danger. It's not a major complaint since it ultimately becomes part of the learning curve. Some stages are just slight alterations of...
What's part of the learning curve? I want to hear that again. I need to hear that again. Sorry for pausing, but I need to hear that. Say it again.
Entertaining tunes. Some complaints I have is that the timing windows for critical dodges can be very stingy. The fact that the game is locked at 30 frames per second definitely doesn't help that either. Also, there's plenty of enemy attacks in which a critical dodge isn't possible to begin with, so you end up hurting yourself and getting yourself into even more danger. It's not a major complaint since it ultimately becomes part of the learning curve.
I think it's kind of annoying, to be honest, but whatever. I guess it kind of can be. You kind of have a point there, but still, it's pretty bad.
Some stages are just slight alterations of previous stages. They do not exactly feel like the same stage with a different coat of paint, but I wish they provided a bit more variety. Particular enemies, especially the rock soldiers, take way too long to defeat at time.
I know, that's exactly what I said.
The voice clips can also become very redundant, especially in the midst of a boss fight, since you and your friends get down quite often.
I agree, that is pretty damn annoying. I couldn't agree with you more.
It would be more bearable if they each had more than a few different lines and responses. And my biggest complaint?
I don't know, I think they should, not talk all that much during the fights. It would make it better.
Has to be the lack of local co-op. I understand the gameplay style would make it impossible for everyone to share the same screen like in the original arcade titles, but I was hoping for at least 2-player split screen.
I agree. There should be some 2-player split screen. However, if they only put that in, it's not going to make the fucking game better. I'm sorry, man. It wouldn't save it entirely. They need to redo this entire fucking game if they want it to be good, and add 2-player split screen.
Unfortunately, this is not an option. Another issue is no extra characters. While the 4 turtles play differently from each other, it would have been nice for a few extra characters to play as after you complete the game.
I agree with that.
Casey Jones would obviously have been a great extra character. Even Transformers Devastation had a bigger roster. Unlike others, I do not have a problem with the length of the main campaign, especially considering that it gives you a lot to grind for as well as 4 different types of characters to play as.
Exactly, and you're right about Devastation.
There's also the idea of replaying a stage isn't always the exact same array of missions, adding more variety. It's certainly not the longest game ever made, but this title provides you more to do and more to earn than any Ninja Turtles game before it. All in all, this pleased me as a fan of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles franchise.
You have to suffer through the bad to get to the good. I don't think it's worth it. No offense, bro. If I'm gonna suffer, I'm gonna play something like Dark Souls 2 or something.
It's nice to see a company try something different for our pizza binging turtles and provide gameplay that is unique to everything before it. Rather than wailing on a single attack button to take down your enemies, you need to strategize and understand the obstacles ahead that you are about to confront.
You still can't upgrade your stats, regardless of whether you strategize or not, and of course you can get through it. I'm certain the game is beatable, but I found it to be really hard to get into. It's bad. It's really bad. You can upgrade your special moves, but you can't upgrade anything else. No other abilities. None of your, no strength, no speed, nothing else. No, it's bullshit. It's like saying no matter how hard the turtles train, they're not getting better at all. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't follow you, man. I mean, you usually have very good points in all your vids, but you're wrong here.
And of course, work together in order to take down baddies more efficiently.
Yes, like I said, working together isn't gonna mean shit if you feel weak as fuck.
Don't get me wrong, the gameplay itself can still be very stiff at times and somewhat redundant. Despite that, I still managed to have fun with this game from beginning to end.
Well, that's just you. The majority of people don't really like the game. I mean, it's not just critics. I have plenty of friends who've hated this game as well, so no offense, bro.
After the pitiful remake of Turtles in Time, this is a step in the right direction for 4-player cooperative mayhem, because I personally grew out of the old formula. Thanks for watching.
Oh, I'm glad to have watched your vid. However, I don't particularly agree with you here. You're right. 4-player co-op is a good option. It's cool, but it ultimately isn't worth it in the end. I'm sorry, man. But this is one TMNT game that I think all of you should skip. Now, of course, for those of you who do enjoy it, that's perfectly fine. I am not going to condemn you for it, but I'm just going to say that this game is still a pile of turtle shit and should be skipped at all costs, but that's just me. How do you feel about this game? Comment down below. Anywho, thank you all for tuning in, and I'll see you all in the next videos. Stay batty, my friends.